Hi, welcome to Unmaking a Mess. I'm Darlene Morgan, and it is Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. It's Unmaking a Mess because there are many messes that I've been in and I have created myself, and thanks to the grace of God, I am still here. Because of that, I definitely feel as if God has a purpose for me, and I know He has one for you too. It takes many years sometimes for us to find that purpose or for God to reveal it to us. And after 50 plus years, I think He has done that for me. I know it can get a little discouraging waiting around or thinking that you have conquered one challenge and all of a sudden you feel as if, hey, if I've done this and I got through it, obviously I am meant to go this direction and help God in a particular way. I had a friend that I spoke to about that, and he told me once I told him that since I got through a really difficult divorce, I knew that God had a plan for me and I was ready to embark on it. He said these words, "Oh, Darlene, it don't work that way." I will never, ever forget that when Coach told me that. I was absolutely distraught. I felt depleted because I thought for certain, after going through 2 years of a really difficult divorce and one that I actually navigated myself and represented myself, I thought for certain that God was ready to use me. That was 2017. It is now 2025, 8 years later, and had no idea it would take 8 years. And even now, do I see that part of those things that I went through during those 2.5 years, about 2 years of divorce, did I realize that some of it I can use and I can help others and guide them. I actually did that last night. And then there's a lot of stuff in my previous life, as in from childhood to teenage years to young adult, that I use even more. Has nothing to do with my marriage, my adulthood. I think it has a lot to do with all the stuff I went through in childhood. Okay, so thank you for joining me, and please remember to subscribe and share and let people know about my YouTube channel, Unmaking a Mess. And I also have a blog online titled the same. I do my best to try to duplicate whatever it is I'm talking here and write it down so that everyone can read it as well. Sometimes I find that I can write things a little bit better as opposed to just talking about them. And so when things come to mind, I'll take to my laptop and I'll start writing it out. And that is a lot different than just hopping on here and telling you guys about my life and what has happened and such. So definitely check it out and click a like on it and subscribe, and likewise with my YouTube. Okay, so as I was saying, it takes a lot of time occasionally to figure out your purpose in life, but I'm a firm believer that God has a purpose for each one of us. As sad as it is to say, when you go through these trials, these challenges, these bumps in the road, if you are a believer, and I hope you are, and if you're not, please send me a message, because I want this to be one that leads you to believing, knowing that I myself had difficult getting there. But nonetheless, if you are a believer, you have to realize that all of those things that you have gone through or you're going through now, God has a purpose for them. They can really suck. They can be painful. They can be hurtful. They can take all the energy out of you. They can take the mental energy out of you. They can drive you to addictions. They can drive you to things that you never in your life imagined that you would do. I don't want you to go there, but I can't be a hypocrite and say it's never going to happen, because it does. The thing about it is, if I can be a voice for you and I can tell you, please do not turn to all the things that can harm you worse than whatever challenge you're going through, I'm telling you right now, you will get through it, and you can do it without the substances, without whatever it is that you think will make you feel better, but also doesn't help you in the long run. I went through a lot of things in my childhood. I have prayed about this particular recording because I thought I really want to go through a chronological recording, storytelling from childhood until now, because I think it's all relevant. I think it pertains a lot to what I do now in my line of work. However, upon praying about it, which I do before I turn on the video, I'm not sure I can do that. The only reason why I wanted to do that was because I figured it would be easier to keep track of. I don't know that anything is going to be easy for me to keep track of when I turn on this phone and I turn on record and I start talking. I pray that God would just give me the words that I can tell you that will resonate with you and guide you and help you and let you know that there is always hope. There is really always an end to whatever it is you're going through. And it doesn't have to be a terrible end or one that ends all. I could have ended my life many, many times. My life could have been ended by virtue of someone else. A couple of times, at least 2 for sure. The thing about it is, I'm still here. I am absolutely still here, and I would have never, ever imagined that at the time I was going through something, or at the time that I was destroying myself, my body, my mind, my mentality, my emotions. Would have never guessed it. All I knew during that time that I was putting all sorts of drugs in my system was I just needed to get through that day. And at the same time, getting through that day, I wanted to get through my work day so that I could get back home and get back to whatever it is that I was putting up my nose or I was drinking. That's what was important to me. Realizing now as I look back on it all, I want to say I never could imagine how I ever got there. But we do. There's a lot to be said about the environment that we grow up in. Do not turn this off and think that you are doing wrong just because you are drinking in front of your kids, because you're smoking weed, whatever it is. No, I don't want you to go there. I am not convicting you by any means. What I'm saying is the environment that we grow up in really does have an effect on who we are now, or who we have been, and how we handle the things that come into our life that we cannot handle. For me personally, I grew up in a divorced situation. My parents divorced when I was only 7. I lived with my mom, who was honestly not there for a majority of the time. During the first several years after she divorced my dad, we lived in the home of an abusive man who was an alcoholic. He was not physically abusive. He was mentally, emotionally, and manipulatively. He got my mom to drink in tons and tons of alcohol, and I would come home many days from school to find her laying on the couch looking extremely dazed. At that particular time, I can honestly say I was one naive child. I had no idea what it was that had happened to her. I think children these days are way more wise beyond their years. They can see through absolutely everything, and I'm witnessing that on a day-to-day basis. Granted, I'm working with females that are 13 to 18. They've already witnessed a lot, and so they understand when something is happening to another person, or they can read through the lines. I myself, I don't think I did anything. I seriously just survived during that particular time and went to school, came home. I cannot remember for 1 second what I did when I even came home from school. Let's face it, there was like no cell phones back then. I didn't have a TV in my room. I did not have an iPad. I did not have all the means that children have these days that connect them so easily to one another. Not only that, we lived in an area where there were plenty of houses, but if you wanted to go see a friend, in my case, it was probably about 1.5 miles away and you had to walk down there or whatever. I was pretty sheltered during that particular time, and I'm not quite sure why, because I wasn't actually paid attention to. My mom was literally too busy trying to please the man that took her in, and I'm sure he probably told her that he could take care of her better than she could take care of herself. It's interesting to say that you can go through these stages of life when it begins to mold who you are. Seeing my mom on the couch and just like in this dazed appearance, and then also seeing her and how she was spoken to and what he would say to me, how he would take her out on the weekends and leave me with a babysitter that equally abused me, sexually abused me, and this was a female. I think you pretty much block a lot of that out. You block out all the things that had a slight hint of glimmer to them. I mean, I can remember being in that huge house and the land and thinking how wonderful it was, swing set, big driveway. We had all these things at our access. He provided me all sorts of toys, gimmicks, scooters, wagons, anything and everything. I think it was pretty much meant to keep me busy so that he could continue to control my mom. I remember during that period of my time, the one thing I remember the most is these little riveted cups that you can buy from a dollar store, and how my mom perpetually had one filled up. It was filled up with Canadian whiskey and Coke. It's interesting how you can remember these little particular details. My mom was generally in the kitchen. If she wasn't in there, she might have been laying down on the couch, and if she wasn't there, she was in the bedroom with him. If that wasn't happening, the weekend rolled around and she was telling me that they were going out. I'll be honest with you. Before the babysitter abused me, I couldn't wait for them to leave because I knew I could finally just be myself. And depending on what babysitter was taking care of me, I actually enjoyed them coming over because it gave me an opportunity to read with them, play music, play games, and feel as if I could actually be the pre-teenager that I was without being ridiculed. I remember a particular time coming home and my mom and this person arguing, and hearing it before I even got to the porch. I walked in and they were standing by the stairway where it led up to my bedroom. And I remember looking at my mom and her looking at me without saying a word. Her face was pale and it was flushed, and she'd been crying, and the man was standing in front of her, and I'm sure he probably had a cigarette in his hand because he perpetually smoked Camels. And as I walked by them, he sneered at me, and sneered is such a great word for it, even though it's not one that I would ever use in any other content. He sneered at me and said, "You're nothing but a bad seed." I continued to walk up the stairs, and right then I knew I was an interruption to their marriage. And that's exactly what I felt like. I felt like if I wasn't there, maybe he would have treated my mom better. But I felt as if I was a distraction to her, because at some points during our stay with him, she had to take care of me. Granted, it wasn't exactly the care that you might see in a traditional home, whatever that is these days. Nonetheless, it was probably one of the worst preteen stages ever. Giving you a glimpse of it, that I had a female who abused me. I think she probably was about 16 or 17, and at the time I was most likely 12. Knowing that happened, knowing that my mom was mentally abused and emotionally abused and given tons and tons of alcohol just to maintain her in a state of mind that he could control. On top of that, he had a son who was 18, and I recall one particular time when I was downstairs playing pool that the son made a remark to me, and he took the pool stick and ran it up between my legs. Nothing else happened. I maintained my clothing on, but it was definitely a clear motive that had we stayed in that house longer, I'm absolutely sure that particular son would have abused me as well. Not long after that, my mom moved and we got out of that house. However, we went back, and just as victims of abuse generally do. But I think the telltale sign and final word of it was when one particular time that he and mom got into this humongous fight. I'm assuming, I really don't know, I wasn't there, but why else would you take your daughter's stuff? Or he knew that it was the stuff that he gave me, take it to the center of this long driveway that he had, and set it on fire. I think about that particular incident and I think, that's just crazy. There's no way that happened. I'm imagining it. I don't think so. Yeah, that happened to me. As I look back at it and envision it and seeing the blaze, seeing the yellow scooter that he bought me, seeing the wagon that he got me, seeing some other items in that pile that he had purchased, games, a recorder. Those are the things that stand out to me, and seeing it set ablaze. I think my mom had no choice but finally to decide she had to get out of there. I'm sure she didn't want to, because it was a home that provided for her and I. She didn't have to work. But that was also part of his plan, and part of his control was keeping her at home where she didn't have to work, and she could literally be at his beck and call. It was not a great divorce. A lot of things happened, and the end result was actually him taking her to court and getting money out of her. Why? Because she made phone calls. I'm assuming because she was so obsessed with him that he recorded and he used as a stalking order to get against her. And hey, court these days, huh? Well, this was, what are we talking, 40 years ago. That's when it all began. It doesn't change. So the reason why I bring those things up to you is because we are talking 40 years ago. During that particular time, I had no idea that God had a purpose for me. I mean, those are some pretty horrendous things that can happen to a young girl, a 12-year-old. And you don't realize how at that particular time, you're only 12 years old, and how God is going to use you. There's no way I would have imagined that. But he did. Those are significant events in my life that I hear to this day from children that I work with now. And the fact that I survived and I'm here in this little home and I'm helping others is a testimony that God can take some of the worst things and bring you out of them and help you to realize that someday he is going to use you to help others. So please stay strong, stay committed to who you are, stay determined, and continue to ask God to get you through whatever it is that you are going through or you've been through, and to give you strength to get out of it and to go on. I am a testimony to tell you that after several years, it can happen. You just have to believe. Use whatever it is that you have been through as a way to know you can help someone else. And when you do, there's this ultimate feeling in your heart that you cannot imagine. And don't we all want that? In order to put away all the terrible things that happen to us? I do. I don't want revenge anymore. Those men that hurt me, I don't know what happened to the babysitter. The men, they're dead. My mom has passed away. Nothing I can do about it now. Maybe God had that in his plan as well. I think if they were here, I'd probably confront them. I'm not sure that would actually have done me any good. All right. Hey, I know that was a tough listen, but I meant to tell you and meant for it to be more of an encouragement. You know, some of the tough things really are hard to hear, but don't look at it that way. Look at it as, look where she is now, okay? And look where you are now. I'm out of here. I've still got to shower. I want to sit down with my daughters for a bit. I've got lots more stuff to do. I've been working a lot lately, but I'm ever so thankful that I get to do the work that I do now and while I can. Love you guys. Please share and subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts are. Send me a message. If there's anything I can do to help get you through or to encourage you, I would love to be there for you. All right, I'm out of here. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye.